Now we're going to go over the PLC control for our feeders. The software number is F020311P-L. If you have not already viewed the general navigation video for the PLCs, please stop viewing this video and go back, because we assume that you know how to navigate through the PLC prior to starting this video. Okay, the first thing you're going to notice is that we're in the stop mode. That means that the PLC is not trying to run anything and it's not activating any outputs. I suggest that you leave it in the stop mode until you verify the parameters and the mode of operation of the control before you proceed. Now let's go ahead and look at the menu. Hit select and we see our first operational menu screen. And that determines which operational mode it will be in. In the run mode, it will feed material when it gets a cycle signal from the machine. And in the calibrate mode, it will give you 10 cycles of material when you push the calibration button. If you push the calibration button when it's in the run mode, nothing will happen. And of course, if it gets the signal from the molding machine and it's in the calibration mode, it will not feed as well. If we want to change that, we just hit select, and then we can use the arrow key to go over to the digit we want to change. Hit select to select that digit, and we can raise it or lower it one digit to change the mode. We'll leave it in the calibration mode for now, say OK, and then escape, and now we're back in the operational menu mode. The next screen, we use the arrow key, and this is where we put in the calibration value, and that's the value that we determined in the calibration procedure, which tells the feeder exactly how much material to feed on each cycle. We also put in the feed time. Here we're seeing 4 seconds. That tells us that the recovery time is 4 seconds and that the feeder will have 4 seconds to feed its material shot. This is only used in the calibration mode, and it ensures that we calibrate the feeder in the exact same operating condition that it will be running in production. This is very important because you can have a variation of 40 to 60% per revolution of the feed screw, depending upon the speed at which it's feeding. So if you don't calibrate at the speed it's actually going to run in production, you can get large errors in output from the screw. If we want to change it again, we will hit select to activate the screen. Go with the arrow key to the digit you want to change, hit select again. With the arrow keys we can change it up and down. When we're done, we're going to hit OK and escape, which we're back into the operational screen. So if you're going to be feeding for 6 seconds, you would change this for 6 seconds before you would do a calibration. If you're not going to do a calibration, if you're running a job you've run before, the only thing that you need to put in is the calibration number. If you've done advanced calibration, you may also need to change the pulse time, but normally that's not necessary. Let's go down to the next screen. The next screen is the material alarm. That's the first thing we can change. And that's how many rotations of the screw it makes before it gives you an alarm. So if you set it at 10,000 like it is now, it will give you 10,000 revolutions of the screw, and it will tell you that your material is low. This is a very good way to know whether you have enough material in your color hopper or not. If you set it at 0, then it will be off. Again, if I wanted to change that, I just hit select, highlight the digit, arrows up and down, etc. Escape out of that. Test cycles is normally set at 10. 10 is not only a good number for testing, but it's great with the math, because if you had 10 grams per shot, your target for your calibration would be 100 grams. It's very easy to work with. I recommend that you leave that at 10. There should be little or no reason to change that. Let's go to the next screen. This next screen is where you can change the pulse on time. Right now it's set at 4, and that's 4/100ths of a second. And what that means is that we're energizing the motor for 4/100ths of a second, which is what will give us one full revolution of the auger or the screw in the feeder. If you don't do advanced calibration, that's all you need to do. If you've done advanced calibration, you may want to change that to a 5, 6, or a 3, but then you need to remember that when you run the job again, that you need to put in both the calibration value and the pulse on time. The pulse on time, off time is not something that you change. It's something that the controller tells you. And that tells you how much time the motor is off between pulses. And that's a good representation of the capacity of the particular screw that you're running. So if that's down below, let's say a fourth of a second, then you're probably running the screw at almost full speed, and you may or may not affect the accuracy if you're running the screw too fast. So this is a good number to be familiar with. You know, once it gets above 5, that just means that the auger is coming to a complete stop before it gets pulsed again. This is where you can set the alarm. So let's say you don't want the alarm to come on and off and light up the light. You can just change this digit and change that. And then this is also, and you just change it from a 1 to a 0. So if you want it on, you would change it to a 1, just like we did before with the mode. If I change that, I'm going to select that digit. If I change that to a 1, that means that the alarm light will light when I've gone through so many revolutions of the screw, as I said previously. If I leave that at a 0, I'm just turning the alarm feature off. The same thing with loader block. Loader block is an output that tells loaders for the color or additive when it can load, and prevents it from loading when the feeder is actually feeding. So I have an output for that in the main control, and if I want that to go on, I would just select that by going, well, first I have to escape out of where I was. Let me change that back to 0, say OK. And I'm going to go down for loader block, and I'm going to turn that on. Okay, this is important, particularly if you have a feeder with a loader, because we don't want the loader to feed while or to load and pressurize the system while we're actually feeding. The other thing is that loader's got a controller that won't allow it to load unless it's getting an OK signal from this control. So it won't work at all unless you've got it connected to the output connector on the feeder, and this is turned on. So it's very important, if you're loading your color with a pneumatic loader, you need to set this to 1, or your pneumatic loader will not work. That's very important. So I'm going to say OK. It's set on, and that output will be activated, and I can escape out. And that's how we basically run the unit. Now, when we're sure everything's okay, let's escape out. We can see we're in the stop mode. So now we probably want to put it into the run mode, and let's take a look at how we do that. We'll just hit escape again. We'll use the arrow key to go down to run. We'll select that. We'll say OK. You sure you want? And I say yes, I want to do it. So now I'm in the run mode, and you can see there's an output that's telling the loader that it's okay to load because it's not getting a signal from the molding machine. Here, as soon as the signal comes from the molding machine, that's going to come off, so that we never ever load the loader or load the color into the feeder when the cycle from the molding machine is running and the feeder is trying to run. Okay, that's the basic operation of the feeder. If you have any questions, please give us a call at 800-918-5820. Thank you.